2004 Ford Explorer. We did the transmission inside this thing. A year later, come back, customer said it has a leak coming out the front. So we take the transmission out and check it, put a new seal in there, figuring it's coming out the seal, and put it back in, find out it's still leaking. Take the transmission back out, check the bushing. Don't expect the bushing or the bushing becomes suspect, so we put a new bushing, take the pump out. So we got to take the pump out the case, put a new bushing, then another seal in, put an O-ring in there, and make sure that the bolts are tight and not leaking out the bolts. Putting silicone on there, put it back in, still leaking. Alright, now it comes out again, so that's 3 times this transmission out, and this is after a year. So this time now check the torque converter. So I have this thing here that's made up. It's just a steel pipe, has Schrader valve in there, clamps around it. You can probably use PVC pipe, drill a hole, put a valve in there, and get a rubber hose or something that will fit over there. Want to tighten this clamp real tight, and you don't want to put a lot of air inside here. If you do, it's just going to pop up. Pow! What we're going to do is shoot a little air in here. May even have to hold this down if you see it starting to come up. Oop, it's starting to rise. Got too much in, so I gotta let some out. Gotta make sure this is full. The idea is to see if there's any leaks anywhere around here. Okay, right here, if you all can see that, you see that it's starting to get wet right there. See if I can see that. It's getting wet right where that weld is. Now you see the wetness there. It's wet. I'm gonna wipe that away. And you're going to see eventually it's going to get wet again. Getting wet right there again. Okay. Right where that weld is where it's leaking, right around that weld. Shoot a little air, but you gotta make sure the converter is full. It's getting wet. Getting wet again. Okay, this is where that leak was coming. It was coming from around that weld on this 5R55SW or a Ford Explorer transmission. And this is how I found it. Okay, so pretty much I was just pressure testing the torque converter. See, got wet again. You see it getting wet. Put a little bit more air in there, and you get more wet. Put a little bit more air. See that? It's getting wetter. There it is. That's there. Now it's not getting wet around the other side. There's no wetness there. See? It's not coming out. That thing is getting right there where you see it right on there. There's a bad spot there. Okay? So you're going to have to test the torque converter if you get a front pump leak. Now you can really see it starting to leak now. Right around that side. Still, it's starting to ooze out. Right around this weld. I can wipe it again. And eventually it's going to ooze back out around there. So there's a crack somewhere here. There it goes again. See, it's coming back. Look at that. Okay, here is another one. This is 4L60E. Note the color, green. This was Dynamic color. And I've always had problems with Dynamics leaking their weld. The 5R55S converter, or W, that leaked after a year. This one someone else put in, and he messed up his transmission because it kept leaking. So what I'm going to do is go through this again on this 4L60E. See where that's leaking right there? Right there. It's coming right out of this crack. So this is where this one was leaking. It's running all out. I put a little pressure in here. Here it comes. See, I wiped that. See, it's coming back. Okay, so now this torque converter is leaking right here. Once again, this was a rebuilt torque converter that was put in. This is for a 4L60E, and I guess about a year it developed this, or showed this crack and started leaking out. Once again, many people change the front pump seal, may even change the bushing, which is good to do, but people don't think about this converter. Uh-oh, this thing fell out. But they don't think about looking at a converter, because the converter has been rebuilt. Supposedly they did a good job. Let me tell you all something, folks. Whenever you have somebody rebuilding a transmission, or rebuilding parts of the transmission, and you have to use it, they can make errors. They can make mistakes. They may not do a good job. Or they can just simply just not see certain things. You know, They're human too. So remember, you always have someone else helping you rebuild this transmission when you have to buy parts that they say they rebuilt. So this again is the 4L60E that was leaking. The other one was the 5R55S, but the one thing they do have in common, they were made by Dynamic. I normally like to use CVC, but the supplier that I go with now has switched over to Dynamic. Now, why did y'all do that? I have never had a problem with CVC leaking. Maybe just because I never had a problem. So now I'm still using these Dynamics, but you may have to make you up a tool like this to pressure test. But when a person comes in, if you don't have a tool to test, if a person comes in, they got a leak, what I'll tell you to do, if you're going to change the pump seal, change the bushing, change the torque converter also, just in case it has a leak somewhere. Change it.